Jen, staying on the domestic front, moving on to the Currie Cup. Western Province finally got pipped. Garen, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's an interesting round of Currie Cup rugby this weekend. As you said, the Western Province team up in Joburg playing against the Golden Lions lost their first match of the season. They're now lost one out of their 6 games. But not a complete train smash. It was a strange game to actually watch. The Province got off to an early lead, and the Lions came roaring back. I thought the altitude had got to the Western Province players, but then the Western Province team finished strong at the end to only lose by 2 points. They picked up a losing bonus point. The Lions, to their credit, picked up 5 tries, so they picked up a full house of 5 points to actually move to second on the log behind Western Province now. I picked the Lions as the dark horses for this tournament, and I still think they're going to be there at the end, maybe even in the final, perhaps even winners. So good things from the Lions. Sort of after a few hiccups, they had to sort of put in a better performance, and they certainly did. Western Province, up in Joburg, coming off 5 fantastic performances to date, just weren't, I think, on their A game. They went through a patch where they missed a lot of tackles, and they sort of pride themselves on defence. So wasn't really impressed by that aspect of their game, but certainly something that they can work on in the weeks to come.
Rob, you were saying earlier, Captain Juan Dion got his maths a bit wrong. They only actually got 1 bonus point out of that, but they still have a 4-point lead on the overall. A 4-point lead on the overall log.
Yes, absolutely. It's still a decent position to be in. Credit to them, actually, for coming back for that bonus point. As you were saying, he thought they were going for 2 bonus points because he'd got his maths wrong with the tries. I think he thought they were going for a 4th try. In fact, for that very last assault, they were going for a 3rd try. Kurt Coleman had kicked a few goals earlier in the match, which is why they managed to keep fairly close on the scoreboard. You've got to say, though, it was a slightly deceptive scoreline in the end because the Lions were leading 35-19 at one stage, late in the game, and they'd really put Western Province to bed. In fact, that would have been a fair reflection of the game, I think, that as a final scoreline. But hats off to Province. They somehow found a second wind. I thought they'd lost it completely because once again their pack took a little bit of strain at the set piece. That Western Province scrum is still quite a rickety affair. I still think they lack a little bit of muscle in that front row of theirs, something they're really going to have to address going forward, especially for Super Rugby purposes. The Lions 8 is quite a mean and sort of gnarly group of 8 who do the donkey work, and there's no sort of fuss and no frills about them. So they slightly exposed Western Province. Province won't be too concerned. They did win the Newlands game against the Lions, so those teams are 1-1. And I still fancy, as I said in my weekend report, that I still believe that they may well be the teams that end up contesting the final. Certainly, I still expect both of them to get home semi-finals.
Yeah. The other results, Pumas going down narrowly to Griquas, a draw between the Sharks and Cheetahs, and then obviously the Bulls, no surprises there, winning comfortably against the Kings.
Starting with that Bulls-Kings match on Friday, was actually the Bulls' first away win of the season, which keeps the poor EP Kings winless and at the bottom of the log, so not great for the poor men from PE, but the Bulls sort of rolling into some sort of form. That were the one last weekend, picks up another victory this weekend, so they're moving slowly up the log. It's sort of like a bit of a bung fight for that 3rd to 6th position in the log at the moment, with Province and the Lions at the top. And then talking about the Sharks, another disappointing weekend. Last weekend they were pipped by a last-minute drop goal. This weekend, a penalty cost them victory. They actually ended up drawing in the end. So their season's certainly not getting any easier now. They play the other teams in the other group, which means matches against Western Province, the Golden Lions, the Blue Bulls this weekend, and then the EP Kings. So they're in a real dangerous position of actually not making the playoffs at all, considering they are the defending champions. We would have thought they were shoo-in for those top 4 spots, but unfortunately for the men from Durban, not quite gelling at the moment. Some discord perhaps there. New coach, new captain, not really working for them at the moment. And then the final game of the weekend, that Griquas Pumas game, Griquas also finding some form. As I said, they beat the Sharks last weekend. We were worried a little bit about the Pumas on the road. They're fantastic at home in Nelspruit, but on the road, they did pick up a win last weekend, but they fell short this weekend, but did pick up a bonus point, did slip to 3rd in the log. But with 4 games to go, they'll be hanging tough there for that playoff spot.
Rob, do you think the Pumas are going to make the playoffs?
I think there's still quite a big chasing pack. Don't write off the sort of improving Blue Bulls, who play the Sharks next in quite an important game. They're still thereabouts. The Cheetahs also sort of lurking. Still the off chance, as they are a sort of bigger union, let's face it, on paper, than the Pumas. Pumas will be very disappointed to have lost this game. They've done so many hard yards against sort of test union sides, if you like. And I always had a little fear that perhaps the motivation might not be there. I think, remember we chatted before the weekend about how they might be a little bit deceived into thinking that playing Griquas, would be a sort of a game that they could target for a win. But Griquas are on a nice little roll at the moment, especially having beaten the Sharks in Durban. So their confidence was extremely high, clearly going into the game. And they're capable of beating anybody in Kimberley. And so they did knock over the Pumas. Pumas will be seething about that. That was the sort of game that some of the pack below the Pumas will be thinking, okay, perhaps that's the bubble burst. I'm not saying that will prove to be the case, but you may just find that Sharks, Cheetahs, and Bulls, various teams lurking below them will be thinking, okay, we can actually rein in the Pumas now.